The first altar to the left of the entrance is dedicated to Santa Maria in Silva, and this dedication is a tribute to the origins of our patron church. Prior to the construction, starting in the 9th century of the Church of Saints Faustinus and Jovita, a chapel dedicated to Mary existed on this site, possibly founded by Bishop Saint Honorius towards the end of the 6th century. The epithet in Silva refers to the place where it was located, a dense wood, a forest, as the slope of the Citneo hill behind our church must have looked at the time outside the city walls. The chapel was completely destroyed to make way for the Benedictine quarters, but its memory still remains today in this altar built in the early 18th century to replace an older one. According to the fashion of the time, it is characterized by a profusion of red breccia and white marble. The most valuable marble parts, such as angels and cherubs, have been attributed to Antonio Calegari, the greatest Brescian sculptor of the 18th century. Perhaps also by his hand are the two small statues of the prophets Isaiah and Hosea, placed on either side of the altar frontal. The ones you see today are actually copies made to replace the originals that were stolen in 1975 and later recovered. The central niche displays the carved and painted wooden statue of the Madonna and Child with St. John the Baptist, a 17th century work by Paolo Amadore, who, although not a particularly well-known artist, produced a work here that is certainly valuable and of a high standard. The sculpture belonged to the previous altar, but given the strong veneration of the Brescian people, it was also placed on the 18th century altar. The figure of Mary is slender and full of grace. Her robes are characterized by flowing drapery, her face composed and serene as she firmly crushes Satan under her feet, aided by the infant St. John, which is possibly a 19th century addition. The altar is topped by a canvas depicting the Eternal Father with the globe of the world supported by angels, a work by Antonio Cifrondi from the early 1720s. The painter from Bergamo worked here after having travelled extensively between Italy and France. These sojourns had enabled him to acquire a certain fame and to develop a very distinctive style, characterized by very rapid, colour-thin brush strokes. Antonio Cifrondi stayed in Brescia in the last years of his life and used one of the refectories of our Benedictine monastery as his studio atelier. It cannot be excluded, therefore, that this work was left as a gift to the monks in exchange for their hospitality. Antonio Cifrondi died in 1730 and was buried in this very church, but no trace remains of his tomb. The choice of marble materials, the gilding, and the works of art confer on the altar a colourful and striking appearance, which blends well with the scenographic style of the 18th century Baroque and is a worthy homage to Maria Auxilium Christianorum.